Have we heard anything from Chair Quila? Okay. Oh, there he is.
Sorry, it was a little too bright in here.
All right, can folks hear me?
Yes.
We will go ahead and get started. Work sessions are for board members to discuss issues informally with staff and invited guests. The board encourages members of the public to attend work sessions and listen to the discussion, but there's generally no opportunity for public comment. Members of the public wishing to address the board are welcome to do so during the board's regularly scheduled meetings held twice monthly. Our first item is the agenda review. Any questions on the agenda? I think, yeah, Teresa's pulled up the agenda through October. Any questions on the agendas moving forward? Commissioner Thompson.
Sir, I would just remind my colleagues that I'm not going to be there at the end of September, that I'm off doing Land Conservation and Development Commissioner business at that time.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Commissioner Thompson. Anyone else? Okay, we'll move on to the next item, which are FEMA updates. And are we going to have County Council provide this, or are we going to have Gail? Gail, Community Development Director.
Yes, good morning, Chair and Commissioners. I'm here this morning just to take a few moments of your time to kind of give you some updates on some movement that we've seen from FEMA on a couple of different topics that are very important to Clatsop County. So the first one that I would like to talk about, we're going to talk about the draft risk maps that were just released in July of this year, and then I'll give you an update on where we're at with the FEMA biological opinion and the PICMs and that entire process. So the draft flood risk maps, they being FEMA, started this process back in 2009, and they were looking at the estuary area and around the mouth of the river. And so over the past 16 years now, there have been a lot of meetings, a lot of technical review, a lot of going back to the designing board. And then in April of last year, we had a meeting with the community elected officials and the different planning staffs from around the county and the cities, and to go over those initial risk maps. And this past July, on July 17th, FEMA did finally release the preliminary flood insurance risk maps and the revised flood insurance studies. And they have scheduled a meeting for September 5th, this coming next month at 9 a.m. It's a virtual meeting. And I know that that invite was passed along to the county manager as well. And what they're going to be doing at that meeting is talking about the next steps in the project. What we're hearing from FEMA right now is that, dependent upon funding, the earliest that they would move into the formal adoption stage would be well over a year from now, sometime in October 2026, but it remains to be seen. So there is a link to the risk maps. We do have this on the county's planning website, so it's available to the public, and I can get this out to your board as well to look at the changes. But just to kind of walk you through it, the purple areas on this map are areas that are being added into the special flood hazard area. So you can see that there's quite a bit in Warrenton, over here up by Tongue Point, and then down here, down along Youngs River, Lewis and Clark area, and then also over in the Brownsmead area as well. Ultimately, if this map is adopted, it would add over 1,000 new structures to the special flood hazard area. And just to kind of give you a more specific idea, When we look at this is the County Public Works facility out on Olney Avenue. So the picture on the left is the flood map that's in effect today. It was an A zone, so FEMA had never established the base flood elevation. In the proposed map, they've done the work and studied it and established different base flood elevations. It does actually reduce the area on the Public Works property that's considered in the special flood hazard area. Same thing with the county fairgrounds. You can see the picture on the left is what's in effect today. Even though there is a dike in that area, FEMA is not providing any credit for that. So the base flood elevation that's been established now will be at 12 feet. So any new development that occurred out there at the fairgrounds would have to be raised to a foot above that 12-foot height. They did take out the parking lot, which is elevated, so that's a good thing for the fairgrounds. That frees them up some room and makes their lives just a little bit easier. Just looking around some of the unincorporated areas, you can see down in the lower right corner, the area that's in yellow in the effective map is now being added into the special flood hazard area. Same thing out in the Napa Brownsmead area. If you look on the bottom right of your map, the yellow areas are now being added to the floodplain. Astoria will see some significant impacts. The map on the right, the purple, shows the new velocity zone where the wave action is expected to be much stronger. And so they now will have that velocity zone requirement and the extra building requirements that come along with it. You can see that it goes around Tongue Point, picks up the Cannery Pier, the port properties. And so that will be some additional development costs as new work occurs in those areas. And then Warrenton probably has the biggest impact. Not only do they pick up some velocity zones here on the right in purple where that wave action is expected to occur, but they also added a significant portion around the Fort Stevens area that has never been included in the special flood hazard area. And again, part of that has to do with that diking accreditation process. And so that will have a very significant impact on the city of Warrenton. And as part of our meeting on September 5th, there is going to be some discussion about that levee project and how that is going to move forward. So again, just to lay out the timeline, we have not started the appeal period yet. We'll have that meeting on September 5th to meet with FEMA to talk about the next steps and to talk about the levee accreditation. And then dependent upon FEMA's funding moving forward, they will then take us into the public comment period and then the formal adoption period. So before I move on to the biological opinion, I'd just like to pause and see if anyone has any questions. I see Commissioner Thompson.
Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, this is very helpful information. I'm drawing on my memory banks now, so help me. A couple of things. My recollection is that the city of Astoria had a water tower above our public works yard. And some of the concern that I've heard voiced would be in case of some events that there might be a collapse of that tower that added water risk to our public works. I don't know if that's an accurate memory. I don't know if it's part of this process or simply distinct from that. And the second thing is, my recollection about levies is that it's a complex and expensive and time-consuming process to get them accredited. Do we have any sense of how long it would take to change FEMA's accreditation status for our levies? And what do we do in the meantime? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. I cannot speak to the water tower issue, and I would defer to Chair Quila on the issue of the levies because I know he's been very much involved with that through the city of Warrenton, and I believe has had discussions with the Army Corps and FEMA about this issue.
Yeah, they continue to work through a 3-phase process in order to get the levies accredited, but is it extremely expensive, as you mentioned, Commissioner Thompson, and it takes a long time. So in fact, there's a meeting today where they're just going to talk through the next steps to address some unacceptable items in their levee system. And will need to be corrected if they can be in position then to get accredited. So there's just a lot of work that needs to be done. I'm curious myself about how much is attributed to the accreditation and how much is base flood elevation. Has there been a change in the base flood elevation, or is it is it the same as it was when they mapped last time?
Yeah, so these areas, Chair, were never mapped previously. They had not been fully studied, and so FEMA had never established a base flood elevation. So I am working on the assumption that a lot of this, especially in Warrenton, is due to the fact that the levees aren't accredited, and same thing out by the fairgrounds. And so where FEMA had studied, for example, around the fairgrounds and the Woluski River, there are actually, the base flood elevation out there is 12 feet, and that's what's been assigned to the fairground, even though that lower portion is behind the dike. So I'm assuming the two issues are very much tied together.
And then I got a question about how we adopt these maps, or how this, because I mean, it's the county that receives these. Each jurisdiction also receives what's a map of their city or whatever community. But when it comes to actually, challenging any of these, is it on each jurisdiction that needs to then hire a consultant to review, the study that was done? Or is it something collaboratively with the county in order to challenge the map as a whole?
So my understanding, Chair, is that you could collaborate with the cities and work together to challenge both their maps and our floodplain maps for the unincorporated area. Alternatively, if one jurisdiction really had significant concerns and just wanted to move forward on their own, they could challenge on their own as well. Each city and the county then would have to adopt independently their own flood insurance rate maps once we get to that point. Before we get to that point, FEMA will post the maps, then they become they open it up for public comment, which has not been started yet. There is a public comment period. Based upon that, FEMA may go back and make additional changes, or they may just move forward with the maps as presented. And then there's a letter that will come to the county that gives us a specific deadline by which we would have to adopt the flood insurance rate maps. The last time we went through this was in 2018, when they updated the floodplain areas along the coast. And so, the county and the cities along the coast had to go through that adoption process.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Gail. Commissioner Thompson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, so then what about the port? Because there's major impact on the port. Where do we partner with them? Are we distinct from them? How does that work?
Yeah, so again, the port does not have to adopt the maps. So they would be under the City of Astoria maps. But certainly this is an item that your board would want to discuss and see how you would want to proceed, and to reach out to the other elected officials and the city managers in the other cities, just to see what kind of coordinated effort might be possible.
Commissioner Wakula?
Thank you, Chair. Since I'm relatively new, can you tell me, is there any previous examples of anywhere along the coast offering revision or looking for a revision of these flood maps and it being successful if there was a counter to those maps? Just kind of curious if moving forward, there's any viability in that as an option, and if we have any past history of it actually working.
Yeah, so there is past history, and part of this, I think, when we have been going through this process, it's been a series of community concerns being raised, the FEMA going back to the drawing board and refining their methodology. But prior to that, I mentioned earlier that we adopted new floodplain maps for the coast in 2018, and that came out of a challenge to the floodplain maps that were issued in 2010. And so based upon that challenge, FEMA went back and restudied the coastal areas only, so didn't look any further inland than just the coastal areas, and then develop the new flood insurance rate maps for the coast that were issued and adopted in 2018. So it is possible. It's again a very lengthy process, and it will be an expensive process because there's a lot of engineering work that would have to go into that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Thompson.
Well, so in 2017, I moderated a panel at the Earthquake Engineers Conference in Portland. And Tom Horning was the one who said, well, you know, maybe Seaside is going to end up as a park, as a kind of recreational area. And I just attended an offering from the Environmental Law Institute, where they gave some case studies in some other areas in the country. And there was I would say, surrender to the flooding issue by converting what had been residential or commercial or industrial into recreational use to keep people and property safe. I don't know if FEMA is trying to force us into that strategy to deal with higher floodwaters. Is anybody else looking at this kind of long-term, bigger picture issue? Is this something that we are just delaying the inevitable? How do we adapt? How do we manage adaptively? I guess that's what I'm asking. And I think, Mr. Chair, that's directed at you, because I don't know how the planning director can tell the elected governing body the best way to lead the county, because we're the ones accountable for that. But I don't know, maybe the planning director has something to say, development director. So I'm just raising the issue because I'm trying to look at a longer term, bigger picture trend. And we can spend a lot of money with lawsuits and other kinds of efforts. But if the push is inevitable because the sea rise is inevitable, is there a more efficient, effective, productive use of our time and energy to lead our people in adapting to this? I'm raising the issue for consideration.
Well, I'll editorialize for a little bit. I think that there's probably opportunities to consider just what you're saying, Commissioner Thompson. Maybe the path of least resistance is to find high ground and to move, your essential infrastructure into those areas. In a city like Warrenton, that isn't an option. I mean, your entire city, 80% of your city is within a levied area. And it would seem to me that it's much more valuable to get the levees built to a standard where they can be accredited to provide that flood protection and to allow that city to grow and thrive. And at the same time, be mindful that you want to locate more infrastructure into areas that have higher ground, that might be in a safer position, but it's just not feasible to move an entire city. And I think that this is a number of issues. I mean, we're talking about the floodplain maps, and then we're layering in the levee accreditation, which wasn't an issue prior to 2010. Levees were not, they were basically not reviewed in the same manner, and now they're being either provisionally accredited or accredited, and that process has never rolled out in a straightforward manner. And the reason that District 1 in Warrenton was mapped differently is that it was in a provisionally accredited levee program, never accredited, but provisionally accredited. And I think that needs to, continue to be the goal, to get into that PAL program for districts 1, 2, and 3 in Warrenton, and then work towards getting actual accreditation, where that levee can provide that 100-year floodplain, protection. Again, this is just the 100-year flood that they're being accredited against. It's not anything to do with tsunami, earthquake, or anything beyond that. It's that 100-year flood. And then Commissioner Bangs, and then Commissioner Webb. Commissioner Bangs.
And, to go along with that, we also have to consider the fact that we are very limited on buildable land. I mean, we've done many studies over the last few years and many, just observations that we don't really have anywhere to move people out of this floodplain. We lack access to buildable land. And maybe it's a consideration moving forward with our lobbyists and with the state of Oregon on trying to figure out methodologies for how do we increase a population here in Clatsop County, or how do we diversify an economy without buildable land? And so there should be some forward thinking in regards to this. Just, because we can't potentially build in these areas or grow in these areas, we're going to have to learn to grow somewhere else potentially. So,
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner Banks. Commissioner Webb.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Quayla. Yes, I'd like to basically just echo what Commissioner Banks just said. I've pleaded throughout our strategic planning process for us to add an element of longer term planning for recovery from natural events. And natural events are both one-time catastrophic events, and it's also the issue of climate change. I've been doing a lot of reading lately on climate change, and there are a lot of places in this country, the Mississippi Delta for one, Florida for another, that are doing some very active planning. And the fact, of course, that we have a very varied topography in our county, but we need to start looking perhaps at some of the lands which we now consider out of reach, and maybe thinking about acquiring more land from the private sector. But there are a lot of issues, and to me, climate change is something that should be very high on our list. And I appreciate Commissioner Banks' comments about that. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner Webb. Commissioner Banks.
I just want to make note that I wasn't leading towards acquiring lands from our private sector. Our private sector landowners, yeah. So I just wanted to make a point of clarity.
Okay. And I would just say too, I'm surprised that FEMA is moving forward with this. It seems there is such turmoil, and we hear a lot of stories about staffing issues, and it'll be just very curious about, their resources in being able to process this whole effort, through appeals and through a letter of final determination. Seems to be a long slog for an agency that seems to be conflicted, and no budget.
Well,
Okay.
it does get curiouser and curiouser, as the book says. So
There we go.
to move on to the additional weirdness, the FEMA biological opinion and the pickums. And I won't go through the background, but this is another issue with FEMA that again started in 2009. So we've been dealing with it for 16 years. It affects most of the state of Oregon. And in Clatsop County, anything that's not gray is affected by the biological opinion potentially. So the biological opinion is intended to achieve no net loss of wetlands, habitat function, and floodplain storage. And to accomplish that and meet the requirements of the biological opinion, FEMA last July notified all the jurisdictions in the state that are part of the National Flood Insurance Program that we would have to pick a pre-implementation compliance measure by December 1st and then implement it by July 31st of this year. So your board did choose to notify FEMA, and we indicated that we would, if we did anything, that we would adopt a model ordinance. To date, we haven't taken any action on that. So we've just been in this holding pattern. There was an injunction filed that is now also on hold. So there's been some litigation activities surrounding this. And so the county's just been taking a sit back and see type of approach. FEMA did announce in July that they were going to extend that Pickum adoption deadline to the end of this month. So next Friday will be when, in theory, the county would have needed to be in compliance with the Pickum requirement. In the meantime, FEMA has required all the jurisdictions to begin collecting certain data, and then we have mandatory reporting that will begin on January 1st of 2026. And then suddenly, out of the blue, we got notification that this Friday, FEMA is going to release its draft environmental impact statement for public comment. That public comment period is going to close on October 6th. And during that, between now and October 6th, staff will be going through that draft EIS and then preparing comments for your board to review and decide whether or not you want to file comments during the public comment period. Depending on what happens after October 6th, again, there's a lot of uncertainty. It was initially estimated that implementation of the BIOP would begin in 2027. It's not clear if that's still the intended target date, but what will happen is after the public comment period closes in October, FEMA will then develop the final environmental impact statement, pick their preferred alternative, and then they issue a record of decision. After that, FEMA will send Clatsop County and all the other cities a formal letter, and based on the time frame they've laid out in the draft EIS, within 8 months of receiving that letter, the county would then have to submit our review path to FEMA, who would have to review and approve it. And then within 18 months of that letter, we would have to have all those regulations adopted. So when I talk about review paths, the draft environmental impact statement lays out 4 paths, and these are similar to the ones that were initially presented in 2021. We can either adopt a model ordinance, we can go through a checklist to see where we already meet the model ordinance and then adopt new rules to fill in the gaps. Or we can start going down more expensive and time-consuming paths, which are developing a customized plan for our community or working directly with NIMS to develop a habitat conservation plan. Those would both be very costly and very lengthy processes. Just to go back for a minute, FEMA does have public meetings set up. They're all virtual meetings. There's also a virtual open house that's available that you can go in and click on different, they call them stations, and bring up different pieces of information about what the NFIP is, what the rules are that are being proposed, and other different types of information. And so that was my discussion. I know we've gone over a bit, but are there any questions related to the biological opinion?
Commissioner Webb.
Yeah, well, I have a question in general. Could you possibly send us a copy of your presentation this morning? Because I didn't get anything attached to our thing this morning, so I haven't seen your slides.
Yes, thank you. I will do that, Commissioner. And my apologies. I just finalized them this morning because I had to keep cutting information out, or we'd still be talking. So,
okay, thank you. I just appreciate you've got a lot of good substance in here, so, and dates to be remembered, etc.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? I mean, the timeline is curious, and it just seems so bizarre that this is where these energies are being focused within FEMA. Do we have any updates on what Oregonians for Floodplain Protection, are they planning to meet or anything, and after the EIS is issued?
Yeah, I have not had any updates. I'm not sure if the county manager or county council have.
Sorry, I'm fighting a little cold here, Commissioner. So if I sound a little bit different, I don't have any update either, Chair, but we can find out.
I just want to add, yeah, I haven't heard anything either, but I'll follow up on my side as well.
Yeah, well, thank you both. I guess we'll get to see on Friday. Any other comments or questions? Commissioner Wakua?
Thank you, Chair. You know, in this role, again, I'm learning a lot, and I'm just trying to be observant and pay attention to what the rest of you say, as you're much more knowledgeable to the previous interactions. I sometimes, from my past experience, have seen that with state programs like this, where they are underfunded and overexpended and resources are minimal, when a plan like this is sometimes put out, it's thrown at the wall to see what sticks. And sometimes I think it takes a group to come back and offer counterpoints to it to be reassessed. If we are going to look at these floodplain maps, I would think that if we're asking the cities to do it and fight, that the county should also support that. And I think coming at it together would offer a lot more value as representing, the whole county together and having strength with numbers. That's obviously down the road, but I would be an advocate for supporting the individual cities and coming at it with the county together. But we can obviously discuss that down the road. So that's all. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with you, Commissioner Wakua, and I do appreciate our community development director who has made an effort to always cooperate and collaborate with our jurisdictions. And we've had that all county meeting and provided this information to everyone. So I do appreciate that has been the approach, and I agree it should continue to be the approach on behalf of the county. Commissioner Webb?
Thank you. I'm sorry, my roommate is trying to comment in the background, and so I had to turn my sound off. What is the meeting on Friday, and who is to attend? What's the? Take me back to what this Friday meeting is about.
And I had just mentioned that was the date of the EIS is to be released. So I think that's just the report that we're going to, the report will be released, and then we'll be able to react to it and see what's in it.
Oh, so it's not a meeting.
There's no meeting. I think the meetings
Oh,
were laid out September 5th, 6th. I think you showed that timeline for when there would actually be an opportunity for FEMA to maybe answer questions or at least present on what the EIS contains, correct?
Yes, that's at September 5th at 9 a.m. And it's a meeting to discuss the future steps in the process and then to also talk about the levies.
Okay, and is that a virtual meeting or?
That is a virtual meeting, and I will get that information out to your board as well.
Okay, thank you. I just have one other question, Gail, and that is, what is the state's role in this whole process? Who at the state is watching it? Do they have any role? I'm never, thank goodness I've never had a disaster occur in any jurisdiction that I've worked in. So I don't understand. Does Dogami care? It's just what is the state's role?
So the Department of Land Conservation and Development, DLCD, they have a National Flood Insurance Program coordinator who's been, I would say, the liaison during this process. But the NFIP coordinator, neither the NFIP coordinator nor DLCD are responsible for the implementation of the biological opinion. That is strictly through FEMA to the local jurisdictions.
Yeah. So LCDC is at the table is kind of what you're saying. Okay, good.
To an extent, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Gail. Thank you, Commissioner Webb. Any other comments, questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Fun times ahead. Thank you. We'll move on to the Regional Overdose Surveillance and Response Plan on page 4. And Elizabeth DeVisser, our Chief Medicological Death Investigator for the Clatsop County Sheriff's Office. Welcome, Liz.
Hello, good morning, everyone. It's nice to meet you in person, well, virtually in person. So I am Liz, Elizabeth DeVisser, the Chief Medical Legal Death Investigator, and I run the Medical Examiner Division at the Clatsop County Sheriff's Office.
And hi, I'm Lisa Schuyler. I'm the Health Promotion Supervisor for Clatsop County Public Health and the Overdose Prevention Coordinator that helped write the plan. So we'll be presenting together today. I'm going to share. Hi.
Go ahead.
I was going to share my screens as well, if that's okay with you guys.
Yes.
Okay, are you seeing the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, let me start the slideshow. All right. Are you seeing the one with the notes or the one without the notes?
Without the notes.
Okay, perfect. The overdose surveillance and response plan, I'll start by going over that. And then afterwards, Liz can talk about the toxicology machine, and then we'll both talk about some trends at the end of the presentation. So the history of this plan, we actually started planning for it over 10 years ago, and the draft was created by the previous overdose prevention coordinator and our public health emergency preparedness coordinator. And then I took it over when I started this role a year ago. We decided to make it a regional plan that included Tillamook and Columbia County because we're a funded region for overdose prevention with Clatsop County as the lead. And each of our counties, I think the reason that our plans hadn't been finalized is because separately, we didn't have the capacity to be doing this level of surveillance on our own. So once we pooled our resources between the 3 counties with our overdose prevention coordinators in each county, we were able to actually implement a plan, and it was submitted to the state and finalized on June 30th. And it is a living document, so there are pieces of it that that change over time. And then I was really appreciative of Liz and also Christina with the deflection program looking over this plan with me. And we've been looking at ways to coordinate our efforts. And Liz has been really helpful in that with sharing her data, which I'm excited to have you guys hear about a little bit later. So there's 3 parts to the plan. You're either in looking at the data, you're either in green, yellow, or red. So if we are looking at emergency department data, which I have access to, preliminary county toxicology results, which Liz is sharing with me, and also reports from community partners. And all of that is at or below the expected baseline level for our county, then we would be in green. So then I would just continue with routine data surveillance and communication and messaging if we were in green. So if we're in yellow, then that means that the data is showing, and what I'm hearing from community partners and the data that Liz is sharing with me is that we're actually in a higher than expected level. And so if we were in yellow, then I would start looking for trends and communicating and messaging more. And since we started tracking in July, our county has mostly been in yellow. So that's something of concern. And I think Liz's data will also highlight that. So if we are in red, then we are much higher than expected. So this is a living document. So the previous 2 weeks of overdose response level we have in the plan right now, that if we have 2 weeks of yellow, we go into red. But after reviewing that with community partners, we're probably going to update that. So that is based on the actual data of the week and not kind of the previous 2 weeks. In this case, we'd be looking at additional data and trying to pull together kind of an overdose response team because it would be very concerning. And so we haven't gone into red since I started tracking at the beginning of July, but we have consistently been in yellow, which is still of concern. And I will hand it over to Liz. She can talk a little bit about the toxicology machine.
Okay, well, first, I want to thank the Board of Commissioners because without you, we would not be able to even have this data. So thank you for all of your support with this. So in 23 and 24, we saw an increase in deaths from illicit drugs. And that's really kind of a surprise when you look at the state data. The state data doesn't necessarily reflect that. But our county within 23 and 24, when I say dramatic increase, we're talking from about 7 deaths per year to 17. And so when we're looking at these increases in deaths, the problem is that when we wait for the state results, it can take up to 6 months to get those back, which means that we're not able to react and respond in real time to these trends that we're seeing. So I was at an annual conference. I saw a presentation given by the Randox team about this tabletop machine that could give rapid, verifiable results almost immediately. And so I started doing research and found that this company is very well respected, and there's ME offices all over the country that are using this machine. And so along with the sheriff's office, we decided to go ahead and present to you the need for this. And so we purchased it and have been starting to use it in April of this year. So our data is still relatively new, but it's already had an impact. So what you're seeing here on this slide is the tests that we use count for 29 drugs of abuse. And what we're finding in our county is that fentanyl and methamphetamine are the two highest prevalences of drugs that we're seeing, illicit drugs that we're seeing. Now, last year, we saw a drastic rise in fentanyl. This year, we're seeing a drastic rise in methamphetamine and fentanyl. So less people are using straight fentanyl, more people are using the combination of both. So what you see on the right is a printout of what the machine does. So it's going to highlight whether something is over a particular threshold to be tested positive. And then we can use that data, both I share that with the public health department and I share it with the major crimes team so that we can look at the whole entire case data and see where these drugs are coming from. All right, so instead of having to wait 6 months for this, usually it takes about 1 week to get these results, which is a dramatic improvement from what we've been seeing. Next slide. Okay, so what you're seeing here is just a small part of the annual report, which will be published next week. And so this is for the 2024 year. And the biggest trend this year is the rise in methamphetamine. So what you can see in the chart on the left is that drug overdoses make up almost 50% of our accidental deaths in this county. 71% of those are males, and then 29% are females. So 2 years ago, we saw a rapid rise in fentanyl, with cocaine and heroin overdoses mostly gone. We have a couple of cocaine each year, but the vast majority are the mixing of methamphetamine and fentanyl causing these fatal overdoses. All right, Lisa?
Thanks. So I looked at what the Oregon data was and versus the Clatsop County data that Liz was just speaking to. So you can see that obviously the numbers are much higher for the state overall, but you can see what the kind of what the trend has been in Oregon. There was a peak in 2023, and then it started to go down in 2024. And there's not complete data for 2025 yet, and the state is a little bit slower to put that data out. So I don't have numbers for 2025 yet. But when you look at Clatsop County, we had a dip in 2021. And the reason it says between 1 and 4 is because they suppress smaller numbers for anonymity sake, for smaller amounts. And then it goes up, and it's the same between 22 and 23. And then in 24, we saw the rise to 17. And then Liz shared with me that for 2025, we've already had 23 possible, preliminarily ruled overdoses. So the preliminary for 2025 so far, just for the first half of the year, is already higher than the total for 2024 in Clatsop County. So this is definitely a concern. And the map that I have on there, that is also from the overdose dashboard that the state puts out for the public. And it's comparing the rate that the state has. And so that's based on population size. They look at how many were in an area to 100,000 people, what the expected rate or what the rate is for the whole state, and compares that to what they would expect based on the state rate for each county. And the rate for Clatsop County is red, which means it's above that average range of what they'd expect. And so we're not the only county that's experiencing that. And, we're obviously not having as many overdoses in numbers as Multnomah County is, but the rate of overdoses that we're having in Clatsop County is higher than the state average and higher than the majority of the state. So something else that Liz spoke to was polysubstance use. And so this is also for the whole state. This is from the state unintentional, this is also from a dashboard, but the data is from the state unintentional drug overdose reporting system. And so that has medical examiner and death certificate information in it. So this is talking about fatal overdoses. The last map I didn't specify was for ED visits. So not all, that's including kind of like all overdose activity, not just fatal overdoses. This is speaking specifically to fatal overdoses. So when they're looking at fatal overdoses, you can see that just like Liz said for Clatsop County, in the whole state, they're seeing an increase. This only goes through 2023, but a pretty dramatic increase in fatal overdoses that include opioid and stimulants combined. So that would be fentanyl and methamphetamine, for example, combined. We are seeing higher polysubstance use, and polysubstance use, because it's so unpredictable, can be very lethal and is very dangerous. And we're seeing an increase in that in our county. So thank you so much for having us present. And I'll just point out that we have a candlelit vigil for Overdose Awareness Day. I think that it's really important to remember that we're talking about people who have families and loved ones who are going through overdose and including fatal overdose, and to kind of bring attention to that and reduce the stigma that surrounds the risk of overdose in our community. We are open, and I don't know if Liz, if you have anything else that you wanted to say before we open it up for questions.
Well, I just wanted to share that being able to coordinate with the public health department on this has allowed us to really respond rapidly to these changes and trends that we're seeing. And then this information is being shared with law enforcement and other investigating bodies to help try to minimize or help people get access to things like naloxone. Or, we're starting to see a trend in xylazine being in our county. And so instead of having to wait this 6 months, we are now able to respond to these things very quickly.
Thank you. Yeah, I forgot to say what ours was as well, that, we're using this data to make sure that we can communicate trends to community partners who are working directly with people who are at high risk of overdose, and try to pull together a team of people who, we've been talking to our behavioral health resource network partners who have been giving us feedback on this plan, as well as Deflection and the medical examiner's office with Liz, to try to pull together a team of people who, have a vested interest in this, and we can all work together to kind of try to find solutions. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa and Liz. Appreciate the coordination. Appreciate you pulling these statistics together and presenting, and troubling trend to see that we have an increase in overdose deaths in the county. Commissioner Thompson and Commissioner Webb. Commissioner Thompson first.
Well, thank you. And it's such a joy to work with people who are making the difference that you all are making. So thanks for coming. If you would help me understand, though, having the data, I can see why having relevant data helps you with adaptive management. What difference does it make in what you're doing on the ground with people at risk for overdose? What actions are taken? Please help me understand that.
Liz, you can go first.
Okay, so what we're doing is, a lot of these, just to understand the pattern of how things happen. So if somebody dies from a fatal overdose and we're able to detect that immediately, then right next door to me, literally in the office right next door to me, is the 2 county detectives. And so I can go over there to them and say, hey, I've got the suspected overdose. We found fentanyl at the scene. What information do you need to go forward with possible prosecution of a dealer? And in doing so, that will hopefully we'll be able to go through with that and reduce the amount of these illicit drugs that are causing these fatal overdoses off the streets.
That's very helpful. Little follow-up. So you can impact the supply side.
Absolutely.
And then the treatment alternatives hopefully reduce the demand side. Is that
right? And Lisa can speak to that.
Okay.
Yeah, and so for public health's part, we're trying, we operate the harm reduction program, and we coordinate with other partners who work with people who use drugs, and with CBH, who does, works with people who have substance use disorder and on treatment. And so us getting the information out to the community that it's important to understand the risk of polysubstance use, because that's a trend that we've identified. If we look at trends and we see that there's a specific area that is being more impacted by having more overdose activity or more fatal overdoses, then is there more support that we could offer to that area as a community? Because public health doesn't, we operate harm reduction, but there's lots of other organizations that are doing really important work. So just making sure that they have all the information on what the trends are to be able to be offering the services and that communication directly with people to understand what their risks are. And also the hospitals, because if they know what's going on more in the community, then they're going to be able to better respond and make sure that they have the services available and their staff equipped to respond to changing. I mean, it's constant. The substances are constantly changing. And so, one of us, and these trends, this data I'm looking at it's really just a small piece of what's happening. I'm not seeing everything that's happening because not everyone goes to the emergency room, or not every overdose is fatal. And so all of us who have these little pieces of the puzzle, from talking to people and from looking at the data and from investigating, when we bring them together, can have a more holistic picture of how to respond to try and reduce overdoses in the long term.
Very helpful to know. Thank you. And thank you for your good work.
Yeah. Commissioner Webb.
Thank you. Thank you for your question, Commissioner Thompson. That was excellent. That I really appreciated that. Secondarily, I thought that the data in the presentation and in the background materials that you gave us was really interesting, very complete. I finally feel like I have a picture of what percent or who in our population is being impacted. And so thank you. The other thank you is for your Excel spreadsheets that talk about what the partnership networks are. And that was really, really useful. Finally, I'm wondering how the thinking is going about how do we talk about this publicly? Do we need do we need to get our PR people perhaps on a message to our citizens? I know that the mental health provider network in our county, which I consider to be quite strong actually, that should we be talking about this? Should we be putting up billboards? Should we be should we be talking about it in the schools, I wonder?
Can I respond, Commissioner?
Absolutely,
Okay.
please do.
So I know I just wanted to say that, I mean, these are wonderful suggestions, and we already are. So I go out to the high schools all the time and I speak to the students about these. Anytime I have an opportunity to present to our citizens about what is happening, because I hear, I'm in constant contact with the families of these people who have died through overdoses, and they feel so helpless. And so one thing that they want to do is to be able to have a voice, and say, this is what's happening. This is what happened to my son who was found, dead in a bathroom in Seaside. And this is really, for every overdose death that we have, it impacts at least 10 more people, if not more. And so it just ripples through our community. And so I know on my side, I do everything that I can to speak out as much as we can. So I am all for any ideas that we have for getting more information out to the public to help them understand what's going on.
Right. Thank you.
And I appreciate that you called out kind of reducing the stigma of substance use disorder, because I do think that, or not just I think, but it's shown that stigma does make it harder for people to seek help. And so we need people through the deflection program and through CBH and through CODA and all of our partners. We need them to be willing to reach out for help and get the treatment that they need before they have a fatal overdose, in order to really make our overdoses go down as a county. And then as a department, we also are really focused on primary prevention. And that's what we do in our health promotion program, which is try to help. And we spend a lot of time in the schools too, to try and give youth and their parents and their teachers the tools that they need in order to talk about substance use and have them understand the risks, so that we prevent them from being in the situation where they've even started using a substance that could someday turn into substance use disorder and cause an overdose.
Thank you.
Commissioner Thompson?
Well, thank you, sir. Well, Lisa, when you talk about what you do, it's very touching to me. Drug court has a graduation ceremony, and they make a ceremony of it, and it uplifts and highlights. I wonder if there's a way that would work with the people you're working with to elevate their success so they can be recognized and reaffirmed in that success. Is that already happening and I just don't know about it? Or
with youth empowerment to celebrate their leadership in helping prevent youth use. I do think that in general, that's a strategy that there's always room to do more of that, but it is one that we definitely think is worthwhile. With the other folks who we work with for harm reduction, I know Deflection also has a graduation ceremony. I haven't attended one, but it sounds like those are also really uplifting and empowering for the folks who go through that. So I'm glad to hear that now that we think of it, that there's two different ways that folks can be uplifted for making a healthy change in their life.
well, thank you for that. And if you want commissioners to attend, if you let us know, because there's something to be said for the value of the governing body member coming to show up to say, congratulations, you're representing the success that we want to see in our community, and we really appreciate you. I mean, whatever we can do to do our part. You can also come and have people offer public testimony, 3-minute public testimony, if that's appropriate, just to highlight it. Commissioner Webb's point about the visibility, it's wonderful work, and to destigmatize it by acknowledging the success and the courage that it takes to achieve that success. Oh my goodness.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Commissioner Webb?
Yeah, I just want to say that I'm one of those commissioners who attends drug court celebrations. And I think it's the most satisfying thing I do as a county commissioner. And I'm always struck by the people who are there, and by the families, by the supportive friends, the court system does a wonderful job of celebrating these graduations, and I'm surprised that they don't get more what am I trying to say? News related stuff. Although I can also understand that the news media probably has to be very careful about people's privacy. So, I don't, that's a tough one, but I can say, because I'm sure that all of my fellow commissioners get the same invitations I do and to the drug courts. And please come if you ever can, because they really are, and there's cake and and they really are, they're a wonderful event. They really are. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Webb. And thank you, Lisa and Liz. Really appreciate the presentation. Appreciate all you're doing, and do let us know where we can be of assistance. Liz, I gave you a new title when I introduced you, Chief Medicological Death Investigator. So now that I know how to read, it's Chief Medical Legal Death Investigator. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And Lisa, I think you're going to stay on, right? You're
Yeah.
gonna- the next one. Okay.
Okay. Thank you,
Liz.
everyone.
We'll move on to the Human Services Advisory Council membership recommendation, and Lisa Schuyler, our Human Services Advisory Council liaison, in addition to your other roles.
Yeah, I get to be the liaison for the Human Services Advisory Council, which I really enjoy also. So Grant North, he's been a member of the 9-member Human Services Advisory Council for several years, and his membership expired. He did renew, or he applied to renew his appointment to the Human Services Advisory Council, and it was voted on and recommended by the rest of the council as well. So we are presenting that here to you today.
Okay, great. Any questions? Am I seeing questions? Commissioner Webb.
Yeah. I just wanted to make a correction. In his application, he says that he lives in District 3, but it appears to me that he lives in District 5, which is noted. So I just wanted to clear up that. He's definitely a District 5.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Webb. Any other questions or comments? Now, is this an item that we would bring back, or is this we'll bring back this for an appointment? Okay.
Meeting.
Any other discussion? All right. Thank you very much, Lisa. Good to see you. We'll move on to our last item, which is the Industrial Development Revolving Fund for Warrenton Fiber request, page 29. And
Chair Quayla.
we have both our county manager and assistant county manager Steele. So county manager.
Yeah, Chair Quayla, members of the board, I'm gonna, if Monica's able, I'm gonna have her go ahead and give an overview of this. But Monica, if you are not available, then I can do it too. So
I am available as long as everyone can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Thank you, Chair, Commissioners. For the record, Monica Steele, Assistant County Manager. So in June of this year, Dawn came before your board in a work session just to provide an update on the Industrial Revolving Fund, including the ORS it was established under in 2000, how the revenues that established this fund were deposited, and the current fund balance. As previously described, the funds are restricted by statute for engineering, improvement, rehabilitation, construction, operation, authorized by ORS 275.510 for industrial purposes. County staff have been asked to bring before your board a request for industrial revolving funds from the Warrenton Fiber Company, and this is for infrastructure improvements to the dock of their Tansy Point operation. This dock is actually owned by the city of Warrenton, and Warrenton Fiber has leased it since 1986. It's located in an I-2 water development industrial zone, so it does meet the qualifications should your board choose to allocate funds towards this. They're looking to improve the dock at Tansy Point, which is an essential component of their operations to move chips and cargo. They currently employ around 90 employees, and this project would directly improve and extend the city of Warrenton's infrastructure for economic development purposes. The work that they're looking to do is they're looking to install 71 anodes to the face of the dock to extend its useful life. The city of Warrenton purchased the anodes for approximately $31,000, and the Warrenton Fiber is asking for industrial revolving funds to install the anodes on the dock. The cost of that work is approximately $189,000. This work for procurement purposes would have to be paid at a prevailing wage job because the work exceeds the $50,000 cost. So they are aware of that. The quote includes the prevailing wage costs. And then just as a reminder, the current balance of this fund, we do have $1 million allocated this fiscal year to go towards the Westport Ferry Road bypass. And excluding that in the fund is approximately $3.3 million. I am available for any questions.
Yeah, thank you very much, Monica. So it has 3.3 remaining balance after the million. Is that what I heard?
Yes, that's
That
correct.
is correct, yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Any questions?
So I apologize because one thing that I did forget to mention is this work will begin August 28th and it will extend through the month of September. If this is something that your board chooses to do, we would bring it back before your board for a business agenda item for the funding agreement.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, Monica. Commissioner Wakua and then Commissioner Banks. Commissioner Wakua.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the information on this. I was curious, what's the process for getting those anodes on the dock, and is there a time frame that we are aware of on how long that'll take?
So the work will take approximately a month. It does involve, I believe, underwater welding because the anodes will be attached to the dock. So there is in the in your packet, sorry, I'm trying to flip to the page. There is a quote from Cascade Dive Company on page 33 that kind of speaks to the work that will be done. That includes just showing pictures, describing the work, showing that the work is completed. And they do anticipate that work to be done by the end of September.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Banks.
I appreciate any efforts that we can do to improve current infrastructure so that economy can continue. I would say that what a wonderful opportunity to kind of partner with the city of Warrenton to make sure that one of our major employees in our community can move forward in a more futuristic and long-term fashion. And so just to be clear, City of Warrenton has already purchased, and so they're just seeking funding to help install.
So the City of Warrenton purchased the anodes. It's Warrenton Fiber who is seeking the funding to install the anodes.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner Banks. Commissioner Webb.
Yeah, my question is a basic one. I don't understand what the function of an anode is on a pier.
It's
what does it do?
It's like it's essentially a mechanism to hold it together. It's like a weld.
Oh, okay.
And I think it has to do with the seawater and the electrical current So I think it'll maintain the life of that structure because it is it's a metal pier essentially. And I think you have to put aluminum anodes or something like that to make sure that I don't know quite how it works, but it'll extend the life if you have a different type of metal anode on there that can, I guess, focus and harness whatever electrical current might be in the water. Does that sound right?
I see.
That sounds
Okay.
correct.
That's correct.
All right, whatever.
Thank you.
Commissioner
Thank you.
Wakua.
Thank you. I was just going to say, I think it's kind of through electrolysis. It gives a mechanism for the electrolysis to attack the anode as opposed to attacking the metal of the structure itself. And so it becomes a resource that can be replaced over time, multiple times, without having to actually replace the core metal or pier or whatever it is you're trying to protect. Just like boats have anodes to protect the hull and the motor itself. It's a resource that's easily and replaced and very much cheaper than replacing the bulk of the thing you're trying to protect.
Thank you.
Yeah, just like I said.
Exactly.
But much better stated, Commissioner Wakua. Commissioner Thompson.
How does he know that? Commissioner, how do you know that? I've been around for a while now. I've never heard anything that detailed and clearly expressed. That was beautiful. Thanks.
I like learning about things that I don't understand or know, and then I store it away in my memory bank for meetings exactly like this.
Very impressive. Well done.
Yes, thank you. So this will come back to us.
Yes, Chair. If your
Yes,
board,
if your board, go
yeah,
ahead, Don.
no, I was going to say yes, Chair. If your board is interested, we will bring it back at the next available regular business agenda.
Yep, we're interested. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we do not have anything else on our agenda. So I'll wish all